I was just thinking, what's the perfect career path for a young woman or beautiful woman? What is her perfect, like, what should she do? Because a lot of guys, they think girls should go back to the old days, to tradition, and they shouldn't do. I'm eating these delicious berries. Oh my God, they're good. That she should go back, be traditional, right? I don't think that's even realistic. I don't even know where she would go back to, you know. But what would be the perfect path for a modern woman, I'd say, I think the perfect thing is, like in life, is to appreciate everything, really expand yourself. And at the same time, keep things in perspective and priorities, right? So you might have one goal that's really important, but there's another deeper thing you want to accomplish. So you got to keep those both in mind at the same time. So there's a time for everything, right? If I think about it, the perfect path for a woman would be to, when she's young, would not to be totally trapped by one guy, to experience different things, to see different guys, to realize a little bit what's out there. And I mean from a very young age, whenever you start being sexual, to experience pair bonding, at the same time experience sexuality, and then realize there's different guys. Like, some guys are very sexual, some guys are very sensual, right? And they will draw that sexuality out of her, right? That's something I think important for a woman to experience, is to realize that there's different, because her sexuality has to be kind of unlocked, or mined or something, has to be found. She doesn't naturally know what it is or have it. I mean, we all have to learn as we go, but I think women, especially, the women's sexuality is not obvious to them when they're young. No woman really knows where she's going to go sexually. She doesn't really, it's a surprise in a sense. So I think the thing is to, I would say, to not to go the denial route where you don't experience anything, to really experience things and to enjoy things and find out where you stand on things and what you like, and to realize the different aspects are parts of yourself, right? But then I would say, like, the next thing is to realize that sexuality or sensuality, as important as it seems when you're young, it's kind of like when let's say you're in junior high, right? And music is like super important to you, right? Like, almost like music is everything. It was for me in junior high. And then when I got older, like, all of a sudden music just wasn't that important. Like, I still like music, I can drive the car, I'm fully into it, but it doesn't have the same meaning it had before to me. There's so much more to life, right? But at the same time, I really enjoyed, really being into music when I was in junior high, and I do enjoy at this age even. I don't like to listen to, like, old music. A lot of guys my age, they just listen to music from their era. I still like to learn new things, and I have a lot of stuff I listen to that's new, So I think that's important too as you get older. But back to the thing of, like, there's a season, right? So I think the thing with women is their sexuality, a woman's sexuality, it has a peak and a period for many reasons. One of them is that her beauty affects how well a guy performs. Like, a vibrator always performs at the peak. It always works well. You turn it on, it always works. But a man is different. A man needs to see her and to be turned on by her. So even Chad or Tyrone, whoever the fuck you want to use, they can't just fuck every girl the same. No way. Because it's hard work to kind of unlock a girl's sexuality. You have to kind of, like, you have to spend time, right? And kind of dig in there to figure it out, right? It's a little bit of a puzzle for each different girl. And also, once you bring her to one peak, to bring her to another peak requires a whole new, set of skills, right? You need to keep you need to put a lot of focus, right? I know for myself, there are certain girls that in my life where I was almost like, I was so happy just to grind on them for 4 hours at a time and just to, like, my focus was totally on them. Like, and it was part of me. I really enjoyed it. And the more hotter they got, the more hotter I got. And the more I wanted to draw it out of them. I wanted to get them to totally let go and squirt and to come and to have various types of orgasms, right? And like different, because they're very different, right? Like there's like full body orgasms. There's a lot of different orgasms. Some orgasms can happen really quick, like 10 seconds. I've had girls come within like 20 seconds. It's not common, but it does happen. And other times I've made girls come on the phone where they're not touching themselves and I'm not touching them. Totally mental. And that's very cool. But there's many types of orgasm. There's many types of ways to get to orgasm. And like, I think that the woman is like something like we have these berries and we have these figs right here. They're perfect. Those berries are just perfect. They're beautiful. They're rich. They're right in the right season. It's just the right day. We're eating them on the perfect day. They're sweet. They've got that firmness and then that tiny tinge of bitterness, but they're sweet. It's just like perfect, right? And a woman is like that. And when she's in that phase or anywhere near that phase, a guy who's very sensual, a Chad or Tyrone type dude who brings it out of him, he is, let's just call him another name. Let's call him, what are those traditional words? What are the seducers in history? Casanova, like a Casanova, right? Like a Casanova type of dude. Casanova wasn't Casanova with a 90-year-old woman, right? He needed a muse to paint, right? And the muse had to be what inspired him to want to be Casanova. He was Casanova to some women, but he was just the guy who lives next door to other old ladies, right? So the impermanence of her beauty and also the limit on her appeal as a woman in the sense that a lot of a woman's beauty or attraction comes from her innocence, right? There is a lot to innocence. It's a very huge part of guys' attraction, which modern women, they use makeup and stuff to look young. So they fully acknowledge that men value innocence. Everything about makeup is to make them look like a child, to make their eyes look big and their face look small. It's an infant. It's a look of an infant. It's a younger, and that's what they're doing. So women know very, very well that that's attractive to men. But then they ignore it when it comes to sexual experience. But actually, sexual experience is more important than the looks to a man. So a woman's like, not only is her beauty fleeting, it's like a peak. It's like you see a graph, right? Like what's that called? The graph that goes up like this, and there's a name for that. A bell curve. There's a bell curve. Like her sexuality starts, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, and it kind of ends, right? Her sexual value, right? And so the key is for a woman, I think, is to understand that the sexuality, even if this is, I really think a lot of modern women don't understand this. They think they're winning if they keep getting orgasms when they're like in their 30s, and they keep looking for that guy who's going to give it to them. I think one, they're kidding themselves because it's going to be over sometime, because the guys just won't want to do it. Like even me in my peak, I couldn't do it with a 60-year-old. I couldn't have that motivation. I just couldn't have. There's no way. I know myself. I went up to different age groups, but I tested to see, because I went down and I went up. I kind of tested around to see what would kind of work. And there's a limit. There was a limit. Even then, there's no way. I mean, I was horny as hell, so it was higher than I thought, but it wasn't anywhere near a woman's full life, right? So I think for a woman, it's just to be realistic about it. I think a lot of people think they can cheat the system, but you really can't cheat the system. But what you can do is you can enjoy the seasons to the max. And then in a sense, you're cheating the system, And of course you can look young and take care of yourself, and you can cheat the system in that way. So there are ways to extend the periods. But I think the thing is like to realize, like, I would say, let's just put 3 factors down. One factor is orgasm. Ever since the 70s, women are chasing orgasm. And they made it this big thing, like guys are holding them down, guys don't want them. I think society had a healthy fear of Pandora's box, of unleashing women. There's a fear of women, because women's sexuality is very intense, and it ruins a lot of things. It can be very destructive. And society had a fear of that. Now, men's orgasm is different. We need men's orgasm in order to have babies. So men's orgasm was more of a functional thing. Women said, oh, men's orgasm was important, as if they were trying to make men happy. Fuck that. They wanted kids. And the only way they get kids is if a men orgasm. So it was never some big favor to men that they're making them orgasm. Women were always putting holes in condoms. They were always saying they're on the pill. They were always like doing things ever since these things were invented. And, there was always ways to get pregnant because they wanted to get pregnant, right? So men's orgasm was always functional. Women's orgasm was not. It was a luxury, So in the 70s, it became a big thing called the Big O, right? And there was movies like Looking for Mr. Goodbar. And it was like woman looking for that orgasm, right? And that started. And then I think if I was going to say the perfect balance for me, if I was saying what would be as a consultant, let's say, to a woman, I would say, you can't really run from yourself anymore. You're going to get a vibrator. It's going to awaken your very soul and desire for more. So I don't think you can go back in time. But I think what I would say is to keep in mind that, like it or not, whether it's convenient or it's not convenient, like a lot of things in life are not convenient. Like one of the inconvenient things is that we die. It's very inconvenient because you keep learning all your life, and then just when you know the most, you die. It's very inconvenient, for like everything, for like professions, knowledge, wisdom, just practical. You spend all this time studying and then you die. It's not very practical. It's not very convenient, right? But just from a convenience standpoint, I would say inconvenient standpoint is that the the experience you have with men, the more experience you are with men, the less your value is to a single man. But here's where I want to temper it. A lot of guys do not present this fairly. And I think myself, I have also not done it fairly. I finally figured out this morning when I was out practicing for this episode, I realized this. A woman has value no matter what. All humans, they have potential and value, right? But when we talk about pair bonding and family, it's such a big commitment for a man. He has to give, they always say 2 people have to give 100%. Like they asked, the couple asked the priest, what percent do we have to give? 50-50? He's like, you have to give 100-100. And they're like, that doesn't make sense because that would be 200. He's like, they're like, what percent do we have to give? He's like, you have to give 100, or smarter priests would say you have to give 1,000%, and she has to give 1,000% to make a family work. It's like a superhuman thing to really make it work, right? Real pair bonding, family. It's an incredible expenditure of energy. And a man will not give everything. A man only has, you can devalue men all you like, but men are valuable. And men only have one life. And they're not going to give it to somebody that is not worth it. So a man hesitates to give his whole life, all his earning potential, his happiness, his until his dying days. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's giving his life to a woman if she isn't, if he doesn't feel she's his. And the more men she's been with, he knows that she's not going to be his, right? A man knows that. And women can say, oh, I don't like that. It's not convenient. I understand that. I totally understand that. And I understand the way that women think, like, hey, let's trick the system. Everybody wants to trick the system. So the way that modern women trick the system is they lie to men. So they say, oh, I'm just like a guy might lie to a girl to take her clothes off. Women lie to a guy to marry him. They say, well, I've only had 3 men. I didn't really care about them. You're the biggest. She's going to tell him a bunch of things. The problem with that is, here's the problem with that, is it sabotages her ultimate goal. Why? Because of the 1,000%. You have to give 1,000%. At the end of the day, when you're married, let's say somebody's married and they're raising kids, the guy's going to know if you lied to him eventually. He's going to know. Now, women think if they lied to him and they married him and he's a good guy, they won. What could happen? What could go wrong? A lot can go wrong. Because the point of pair bonding, the point of the whole thing is to, the original point of this thing is it's a maturing of the two people. They grow together, they overcome challenges. There's a lot of things that come out of this that are beautiful. Just like lifting weights is hard, but a lot of beautiful things come out of it. Just lifting weights is not worth it. But the benefit you get from it, or from yoga, or from learning anything, right? Same with a real relationship, like a pair bonding of two people and a raising of little ones, right? There's something there, right? But everything will be revealed eventually. So here's why a woman has to put it in perspective when she's young, is because modern women think if they cheat a guy, they marry him, they lie to him. They don't even think it's lying anymore. They think they have a responsibility. They don't even have to tell him because it's their body, their choice. They don't have to tell the guy their experience. But the problem is this. The problem is, understand a man. And this one I actually got from the Fresh and Fit podcast. I'm going to put in a little nugget I got from there. That they compared a man's biggest fear and a woman's biggest fear. A woman's biggest fear, they asked the women, they all said the same, like getting abducted, right? So like at the back of a van, tied up, and all the things that happen, right? The bad things that happen, right? That's a woman's biggest fear. A man is not really afraid of that. A man, that's not his biggest fear, not at all. Not that a man would be, that wouldn't be enjoyable, but that's not his biggest fear. A man's biggest fear is that a woman tricks him sexually. At the bottom of it's like he's humiliated. He's a fool. He's not hers. So that's his biggest fear. So I think a lot of women don't like to think about, hey, Biddy. They don't like to think about the truth about that. Because here's the thing. If think about a movie. Okay, you watch, this is an example. I want to take it further. Okay, so imagine, have you ever seen a movie where a guy abducts a woman? Ever seen that?
Maybe.
There's a lot of books about that, movies about that. And in the movie, it's always kind of the same. The guy, let's say he abducts her, he's got her in his basement and all that. And then after a period of time, he starts to relax because he starts to think that she's in love with him. Because she wants to get out, right? So she's trying to get some daylight. So he's gone long enough. He forgets the key. She can run out. She can go to the police. So she's like constantly thinking of that. And so she realizes that the guy's deluded. And then if she pretends like she's in love with him, he's going to be happy. He's going to believe it. So the woman who's being kidnapped, she's like looking at the guy and then she's like, actually, you don't even need to tie me up because I'm totally happy. I realize you're the one for me and I want to cook some food. I'm hungry. And then the guy's like, he starts to believe it. So finally he lets her go. And then what does she do? Does she stay there? Hell no. It was all just to get free, right? So she runs away, right? And I think the thing is a woman's biggest fear is being abducted, right? But the guy believes she's going to fall in love with her. I think it's the same with women, is they abduct a guy by lying to him about the things that she knows, if she's honest, she knows this is a very important thing to guys. Every guy might not be exactly the same, but this is in the top 2. It's right up there. Not being humiliated and made a fool, right? And knowing that that woman loves him. That woman is for him. It's his woman. He's making the commitment because he knows that's his woman. He says, this is my wife. Men take that shit totally seriously. They're not like, this is the girl who sleeps with everybody, but has a ring on her finger. That's not what a guy thinks. He's like, I got her, and she's my man, she's my woman, I'm her man. Guys love that. That's the thing. So the biggest fear, they'd much rather stay single than be humiliated, right? Much rather stay single. So, but women think, just like women are deluded like the kidnapper. They're deluded to think that if they lie to the guy, and then he finds out later, they're still going to love him, they're still going to be fine. But no, actually, it sabotages the very thing they're trying to do. Like, they went from, let's say, a sensual period in their teens or whatever, early 20s, to a pair bonding, family raising thing. But then it's all destroyed when he finds out that she deceived him on what he considers to be his most important thing, because there's 2 things that happened. One was she's not what he thought. The second thing is she deceived him on his most important point. So when let's go back to the example. It's such a great example because say the guy's got the ice cream truck or whatever, and he's trying to abduct her, right? And he's driving her with the clown outfit on, right? And he's like, would he succeed in abducting her if he was like, hey, I'm going to abduct you, just come on over here, just get in the car and I'll tape you up? No, he has to lie to her. He has to tell her, hey, baby, some ice cream, hey, whatever, he's got to like, can you help me? My arm's broken or whatever. He's got to, I've seen a couple of movies, I have some ridiculous examples, but that would be the kind of thing, right? He's got to trick her, right? And then after he tricked her, he thinks he deludes himself. Women are exactly like that, exactly the same. They think they can trick the guy, abduct him, and then he's going to be happy with her. He's not going to be happy with her. And in fact, not only is he going to be very angry about it, and everything of his emotion will disappear for her. He won't trust her. And also, it goes way beyond that because men that are his friends will hear about it. And this sends cold shivers down a man's spine because the weird thing about what men want is it's so easy to lie about. All a woman has to do is move cities, and then just recreate herself. And so it's very, very easy to do this one, to totally fool a man. But it doesn't work long term. So I think if I was a woman, if I would say the best advice is to experience yourself at a very young age, right? And to learn, but to know that it's a limited time period. And to quit before the game's over. Quit way before the game's over not because society needs it, not to be a good person, but because you in your life have longer goals and bigger goals, right? And there's even bigger goals than all these two things. The biggest goal at the end of the day, let's go to the end of your life. Okay, so when your children move out, what's the biggest problem with parents? Empty nest syndrome. They built their life around their children. And every mature older person will tell you that is a mistake. You need to build your life at the same time as you're building whatever else you're building. If you're building a family, if you're building a marriage, you have to build your life number one. That's your number one goal in life. Because in the end, the rest can be taken away from you. But you still have yourself. So the wise person realizes that it's not about the orgasm, although that is important. Just like food. The taste of food is important, but health is important, right? There's always a balance, right? Health is important, but more important than health, there could be other things, right? There's always other things. You could be in prison, very healthy, but you're in prison, right? Is that going to make you happy? You're in solitary confinement, right? Probably not, So there's always other cascading things, right? So I would say as a wise person, I would say you want to realize your ultimate goal, although it's very enjoyable, is not sensuality, and it's not pair bonding, it's not even children. Your ultimate goal is be yourself, is building yourself into the best person that you can be, and the most you can be. Not the best person in the Wikipedia, but the most you. I've been building myself. That's why I'm so unusual, actually, because I've never followed other people's paths. I just keep building myself, and I don't know where I'm going with it. People will say, what are you going to do? What are you doing with yourself? I don't know. All I know is I have this weird, unique person inside me, and I'm going with that. You know what I mean? And I'm deepening that. And that's what my ultimate goal is. I don't know where it's going to lead me because it isn't a goal. I believe in myself. And I believe if I keep following that path of myself, my uniqueness, I will become what I was meant to become. The skills will be there. I trust. I don't just give up and say, oh, I have to be a carpenter because that's the practical thing, right? It's like, no, I don't have to do that. I have bigger goals. And that's to build a unique life. Totally myself, right? So women are great. I'll tell you this, as a guy who has been with a lot of women, they still don't mean that much to me. And I think it's the same with women. As much as men mean a lot to them, they don't mean that much. Because the deeper thing is that you're born alone and you die alone. It's your life in the end, right? It's your life. Who are you? And where are you going? So I'd say both for men and women, but I started off thinking about the women, but very important to see the three things, right? To see the full thing and to realize that there's not one goal you want. A lot of younger women will follow the orgasm and they will misinterpret things. Like, for example, society might disapprove of them, or their parents might be angry at them, and they might misinterpret that as I'm doing what I want and they don't like it. But fuck that. I'm going to do what I want. The problem is, there's nothing wrong with doing what you want. The problem is, that's not what you want. You want more. And what if you continue in any of these phases forever, like a mother who can never let her children move out, will ultimately destroy her. And the children will distance themselves from her because it's not right. It's not the natural thing. The children have to be independent. They have to go on their own when they become adults. It's very, very important for them as people. Their job is not to make their mom happy. She gave them life. Her father, her husband gave them life, and that life is their life, right? She's only lucky enough to be part of that for a period. And now they go off and do their thing, right? You can't get stuck in any of the phases as much as you want to, because the phases will disappear and they will destroy you. So I think it's about enjoying the phases, but realizing that there's always more. And that will give you the perspective that I think you can sink deeper into each phase too. And you can enjoy those phases because they're not permanent. They're just one small part of life. They're just a small part. They're not everything, And I think if I could go back to my younger self, I would tell my younger self that it's not all about fucking women. Because in my 20s, I really thought it was. I thought everybody was jealous. I mean, I knew people were jealous of me. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't completely wrong. But at the same time, I couldn't see that I wouldn't want to do that forever. Like I was totally shocked when I stopped wanting to seduce women all the time. Like, it just didn't give me the same thrill. It just doesn't do it anymore. There's a period where you think that it's going to be forever, right?
When was that?
For me, I think it really was, looking back, when I was about 30. I was about 30 years old. And I had the most delusion when I was about 29. I was convinced it was never going to... Oh,
so it was peak delusion.
Yep.
Because I thought you would have said,
24 or something was when you had.
No, I was more sure when I was 29. I was like, 100% I'm doing the right thing.
Wow.
Because see, here's the thing. I got so good at it and I made many women happy that I knew I could keep doing it. This is why I was so deluded. Because a lot of guys, they'll say, you can't keep doing it. That's why you shouldn't do it. But it's not true for men. Men can keep doing it physically. They can keep driving women crazy, actually. Not every guy, but a lot of guys can keep doing it another 3 decades on top of that. Maybe even longer. But, see, the thing is, it goes back inside of you. You will go to a new phase. Unless you don't grow, you will stick in a phase, right? And also the phase will pass you by too, because even if you can do it for the women, and I think that is actually possible to continue doing that for 4 decades after that, 3 decades after that. But even if you could, the problem is not you anymore. It's not them anymore. It's you. You won't want to do it. And this is what is the biggest shock. Because you think you outsmarted everybody. And you're like, I ain't going to let anybody change me. I know the truth. Nobody gets pussy like this. Never as good as this. And they're just jealous. And you're so... Part of the problem with going your own way is when you go your own way, you no longer have many people that can give you advice. Because they all didn't do what you did. So you can't really... Because what is a married guy going to really tell you? You don't really... Unless the guy lived a life like you, then he can tell you, right? But if he didn't, so for example, let's say a married guy, to finish this answer, he did everything right? He found the girl, he married her, she loved him, she stayed with him. But even then, there's something in a man that wishes he spread his seed more when he was young. Like there's something in a man. There's something unfulfilled in that married guy. So when he gives you advice, you as a smart young man know that. And so you're like, this old guy didn't spread his seed. So even though he's like, I'm jealous of him for where he is, he's jealous of me for where I am. And so you stop listening to the guy because you know that he doesn't know. Hard to find somebody who's done both, who knows both, right? So that's what I want to bring as much as I can. That's why I want to keep learning, so I could bring as much wisdom to things like that, right? And say that, and say